Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today we'll discuss some of the basic state level questions. Let's start with the first question. So how much time JMeter will take for login action by increasing or decreasing the thread count? So the answer will be the time JMeter takes for a login action depends on multiple factors, especially when increasing or decreasing the thread count. So the thing is like normally the login time with low thread count, for example, 1 to 10 users, um, uh, each login request is processed quickly because the number of threads are less, 1 to 10, and server can handle the load efficiently. And login action time will be equal to the actual response time of the server, usually a few milliseconds or a couple of seconds. Now the problem is when your number of users, let's say thread counts, will be more, 100 to 1000 users. In this case, what happens? Multiple users normally hit the login API simultaneously. So if the server is not highly scalable, response time will increase. So login time will also increase due to server queuing or throttling or DB bottlenecks, network latencies. So these are some of the reasons why normally your thread count will basically increase or decrease once you try to log in. Okay, so it depends on server performance, database speed, network latency, thread ramp up time, think time or timers. Okay, these are the reasons. Okay, now here in this case you can see number of thread counts is 10, so it will be responsible 150 milliseconds. But moment your thread count goes up, it will come as 700 milliseconds, so close to 1 seconds. Okay, next question: how can you test an API? How can you test an API by calling a server through JMeter? Okay, so the answer will be basically the testing API using JMeter involves creating a test plan that sends HTTP request to a server and analyzes the response. So you need to basically install the JMeter, create a test plan. So to creating a test plan, you need to basically right click on the test plan and then click on add threads users and create thread group. So number of threads, ramp up time, ramp up period, or loop count. These are some of the basic things we need to do to create a test plan in JMeter. Now add HTTP request sampler. So right click on the thread group, add sampler HTTP request. Okay. Then you can add HTTP header manager. Okay. So this will be done from the config element, HTTP header manager. You can add a listener to see the results. So you can use view results tree or summary report or aggregate report. And finally, you can run the test, run the results to see the status and the number of errors. Okay, so this is the normal steps. So in short, like let's say if you're running a post API login test, you need to basically include something like server name, path, methods, header in the JMeter. Thereafter you analyze the results and you can see like what will be the HTTP status code for the post request API, and if you are getting an error like for not one unauthorized error or not. Okay, you can also use assertions like response assertions. You can also use something like CSV dataset config for if you are doing any data driven test, or you can use like regular expressions you can use to extract, like say capturing tokens from response for user in the next steps. Okay, the next question is, what is load balancing and how can I know the capacity of the instance? So basically, load balancing is basically a process of distributing the incoming network or application traffic across multiple servers to ensure no single server is overwhelmed, better performance and reliability, high availability and fault tolerance. Okay, now the question is, why is load balancing so important? So because it prevents server crashes. okay, due to high traffic, optimizes resource utilizations, improves the scalability, like easy add or remove instances, ensures redundancy. If one instance fails, other handles the load. Okay. Now the types of load balancing will be, let's say, round robin. Requests go to each server one after another. Least connections sends traffic to the server with the fewest active connections. IP hash, so chooses server based on IP address or hash, and then weighted servers are assigned weights depending on the capacity. More powerful servers get more requests. Some of the common load balancer like AWS ELB or Elastic Load Balancer, and then Azure Load Balancer, GCP Load Balancing. These are the very common load balancers. Normally, these cloud platforms uses. Okay. Now, next is what is an S3 bucket? So S3 bucket is normally a storage container. Okay, in Amazon S3 simple storage service, the service provided by Amazon AWS. Okay, for storing and retrieving any amount of data at any time from anywhere in the web. So the question is, what is its advantage? Why you are using S3? So advantage is like it is scalable, stores the kilobytes into petabytes. Durability is more. That means um, your file will be uploaded quicker, much quicker, and it will be available much quicker. Secure, supports encryptions across and access control, and cost effective. So you can, if we, AWS normally provides pay as you go model, so various storage classes we can normally uses use. Okay. Now next questions. Which JMeter listener I should be using to get complete server from a server? So to get a complete response data from a server uh, in JMeter, okay, we need to include including full response body, status, headers, and more. The best listener to use is a tree listener. Okay, so what exactly is tree listener? So it basically shows full request details. Let's say you URL parameters, headers, everything, full response data. So body will have HTML, JSON, XML, etc. Status codes, it's a 200, 401, any of the status code, including header information. Assertion results will also be present. Sampler data, HTTP method, thread name, request and response in raw format. Now the question is, how should I add it? You can go right click on the thread group, add listeners, view results tree. Okay. Now, now the question is, if our goal is to test server performance using load, then common listeners you can use like summary report, aggregate report, response time graph. Okay, these are the reports you can use to print the results. Okay, after putting tree listeners. Okay, so next questions. Tell me what is listeners in JMeter. So in Apache JMeter, a listener is a component which is used to view, record, and analyze the results of your performance test. So listeners collects data from samplers during the test execution and display or save it in the various formats. Okay. Now the question is, what is the purpose of listeners? So it shows response time, errors, throughput, and other metrics. Displays test results in real time, helps in debugging and analyzing server behavior, export data in the CSV, XML, or Excel for supporting or reporting. So some of the common types of listeners will be like view results tree. It shows the request response details for debugging, and summary report. Okay, the reports will be in the form of tabular format. Minimum, maximum throughput results will be there. Aggregate report, you will have similar to summary, includes 90% line. Okay, and then median graph results. So you will see line graphs showing average response over time. Response time graph. So graph shows response time. So graph will show the response time across threads. Then view results tree. tabular view of the individual sample data. Backend listeners, it sends results to monitoring tools, and simple data writer save results to file and assertion results. Okay, these are some of the listeners. Now, how should I add the listeners? Right click on the thread group or test plan, and then you can add a listener. Now the question is when to use which listeners. So you can use, let's say you want to check the performance summary, you can use summary report or aggregate report. You can export the test results, simple data writer, okay, and debug API response. You can try view results tree, okay. So in summary, listeners are used to observe, measure, and store test results, making them essential for analyzing the performance, reliability, and correctness of APIs. Okay. What is JMeter sampler and why you are using it? So JMeter sampler is a component that sends a request to a server and receives a response. Okay. The purpose of sampler is a core action in the JMeter test. Okay, and it stimulates the real user activity like sending HTTP request, making a database query, sending a SOAP or REST API call, and sending an SMTP email request. Okay, so if somebody asks like what are the common type of samplers, let's say HTTP request is a sampler. Okay, it can send, get, post, delete request, and SOAP request will be SOAP or XML request will be another sampler. You can send SOAP web service request, and then JDBC request. You can execute SQL queries on database. FTP request, users or downloads, I mean uploads and downloads files from an FTP. SMTP sampler sends email using SMTP protocol. Java request like calls a Java class. Okay, these are some of the basic sampler, and you can add them from thread group by selecting add sampler. So normally we use samplers like when we are doing some testing, API performance or load testing, functional testing. Okay, these are the main activities we normally use samplers. Next, what is SMTP and have you ever used SMTP? So SMTP basically stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It is a standard protocol used to send emails from one server to another across the internet. Okay. Now, how normally SMTP works? Like a client or a sender connects to an SMTP server. So there are so many SMTP servers. Like Gmail will have one their own SMTP server. Hotmail will be having their own. So they will normally connect to an SMTP server. Client will send an email, say sender address, receiver address, subjects and body, and then SMTP servers then delivers the email directly to the recipient server or forwards it to the SMTP relay until it reaches to the destination. Okay, so common SMTP servers will be like Gmail, Outlook, as I mentioned, Yahoo, Amazon SES. These are some of the common SMTP servers. Okay, now some of the features of SMTP servers will be like uh, SSL. It will have SSL or TLS encryption. It will have authentication, like username, password. Okay, and similarly, the tools like Jenkins or GitLab or TeamCity, which we normally use for our testing, CI/CD pipeline. Okay, uses SMTP to send build and test notifications. Okay. So next is what's the difference between XPath and XPath um, 2 assertion in JMeter? So both XPath assertion and XPath 2 assertions are used to validate XML or HTML responses by applying XPath expressions. However, they normally differ in XPath engine versions. Okay, so functionality and compatibility. So the question is how will you add them? So to add assertion, you can go to JMeter, right click on a sampler, add, post processor and you can select expert assertions. Similarly, for expert 2, you will do the same process. Go to post processor and select expert 2 assertions. Now the question is, what is the functional difference between XPath and XPath 2? XPath normally difference is in XPath version. So XPath assertion is normally 1.0. XPath 2 will have 2.0. Engine used. So normally we're using JaxP for XPath 1.0, and section XPath will be on XPath 2.0. So we'll also use something like validating the XML structure validation using 1.0, but complex XML queries or filtering, or if there is a need for filtering, we need to use XPath 2.0. Okay. So these are some of the differences for both. And now the question is how to make sure that XML or HTML and is actually reading. So you can make sure the response is that is XML or HTML, and we need to enable the read response as a document in a JMeter. Okay. Now in summary, XPath version is 1.0 and XPath 2 is 2.0. Functions for XPath 1.0 will be basic, while XPath 2.0 will be advanced, and performance will be better in 1.0, and 2.0 will be slightly heavier, and complexity, in terms of complexity, 2.0 will be better. Okay. Now the question is, next question is, what is random model controller, and why, and what is throughput controller in JMeter? So in JMeter, controllers are normally used to define and the logic of test executions. They control how and when samplers should run. So two useful controllers are random controller and throughput controller. The random controller now randomly selects one or more child samplers to execute during each loop iterations. And so if we have multiple requests and want to simulate random user behavior, then we should use random controllers. So in each iterations, only one random child is executed, while throughput controller is like it basically controls how often its child samplers should execute based on percentage or total executions. Okay. So in summary table, random controller normally selects one child per iterations and simulates random user actions, while throughput controller basically executes children based on percentage of current control or percentage of on the count control, and simulates realistic traffic distributions. Okay, so I think these are the questions normally can be asked in JMeter performance. So I hope it helped, friends. So thank you very much for the session.